Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside Student Affairs. I am your host, Zach Hawkins, Director of Development for UNC Student Affairs Development. And today I have an amazing guest with me, Tiffany Bailey, who's the Director of Accessibility Resources and Services. Tiffany, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Zach. How are you?
Good, good. Well, thank you for joining Inside Student Affairs. As we kicked off this series a few months ago, the purpose is to ensure that people can do just that, dig into what we do every single day to foster student success and to make sure, especially during COVID, that we continue to hold the university, up. We're the main student service side of the campus, the student affairs side and student support side. And it's just important for people to meet not only the folks who are doing the work like you, but also to hear more about the work and ways that they can support it. So I always get started with tell me about you and how long you've been at Carolina.
I've been at Carolina for 11 years. I was in the assistant director role and then applied for the director's role and have been doing that ever since 2013. So quite some time. Prior to that, I worked at UNC Greensboro, and so the majority of my professional career has been within the UNC system.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Well, I know that there's so much for us to cover today, but I'll get started with just giving an overview of your office, your staff, and the work that's in your scope.
Sorry, it took me a second there. So we have about 5 full-time staff, and our role is to provide accommodations for students with documented disabilities or medical conditions who connect with our office. And so we do that in a number of different areas. Um, we do it for housing and dining accommodations, academic accommodations, and then some of those really more interactive, like clinical accommodations, internships, etc. So we have a really wide variety of things that we do. In addition to that, we have a small testing center that we have available to be able to proctor students who are connected with our office in the receipt of accommodations when faculty are not able to provide that space. We do this with 5 full-time staff and a number of amazing student leaders. And this semester, an undergraduate and a graduate intern from different programs within the institution. In addition to that, we also, through our work, provide education to the campus community on disability and try to help assist in normalizing it, helping to give faculty tools to be able to work with students with disabilities or just students, period, who have different learning styles.
Sure, and that can range from I need more time on my test
Correct.
to I have a intellectual or physical disability as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's a number of, we serve a number of different students across the continuum with various types of disabilities, and there are a number of accommodations that we consider through our process.
No, no, fantastic, fantastic. And so, a little bit more about the education that you provide, like how accommodating, I guess, do you find or open do you find professors across campus?
We find them to be really open. I think a lot of times, I think this goes for anything, is that there just might not be an awareness, right, or understanding of. And then, I think for some of our students with disabilities, and I'll speak personally as a person with a disability, advocating on behalf of yourself, it's lifelong, right? And so I think there are some times where our students are not sure how to broach the subject with faculty. And so we're always happy to kind of step in and assist. We're all about our collaborative relationships with faculty. We couldn't do what we do without their help and support and in making sure that we're implementing these accommodations. And then we're also trying to help educate the students on, how do I advocate for myself in this particular situation? What tools might I use moving forward if I were to, encounter a specific situation again?
Yeah, yeah, and that's what is so important because, as you mentioned, there's so many different learning styles, and there are so many the range of disabilities that exist on campus, and Carolina has just is a place for all, and so it's good to know that we have people like you that can help students and educate faculty about that work. I want to dig a little, further into, developmental disabilities a little bit. I know that you help and support, students with autism. Just to name one. Talk a little bit about some of that work and how it really impacts UNC's campus.
Yeah. Well, I think what we found over the years, and I think there are some institutions, who've addressed this through programs that they've created, but that our students who have been admitted to the institution who are on the spectrum have difficulty navigating. I mean, it's a number of different things. It's the academic kind of challenges with executive functioning, it's the socialization, it's the daily care. And so we have, worked hard to try to address that gap without having a formal program necessarily, even though that's ultimately what we would like to do. And where that resides within the institution, right, that's TBD. But I think that there's a collective group of folks that see the merit and the value in that. And so, what we typically do, and there's a student right now that I'm meeting with weekly to kind of provide some more intentional support, and our other staff will as well. Um, to try to address the gaps that are there. And we work really closely with the Learning Center doing academic coaching, and they're such a great campus partner. But I think, the needs of our students on the spectrum go beyond just that, right, as they're navigating the institution.
No, no, that's helpful. And you mentioned partners, and that's actually a really good segue into my next question about what are the range? You talked about professors in the academic side of the house and the learning center. Are there any other partners that you work with on a regular basis to help all students with disabilities?
Quite a few. I mean, we have a lot of graduate and professional student colleagues within the institution. We also work a lot with CAPS and Office of the Dean of Students,
Mhm.
wellness, campus health. So there really isn't a campus partner that we haven't worked with, I don't think. So, again, that's one of the things I think that is what I love about Carolina is people want to support students. They want to collaborate with various offices to support students. And it's those great connections that help our students connect.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And I think one of the things that's so that's just impacted everyone, but I know it's impacted your work is COVID-19
yeah.
and the pandemic. And could you talk a little bit about not only how it's impacted your ability to connect with students physically, but what has been the impact on students? What are they saying, and how have they made it through this last year?
Yeah. Um, I think, for the most part, from an office perspective, we are pretty nimble already, and we are already kind of utilizing our technology. And so I think that I feel proud of kind of how when everything started last March, that it was pretty seamless for us in that transition. I think that we've been able to connect with students well through our platforms. We've also been doing some more direct outreach to students to say, how are you doing? Are there any impacts you're experiencing? Are there any additional accommodations you'd like us to consider? Can we help connect you with resources? So we're really trying to do some more of that outreach. What we're hearing from students, right, is a lot of the same themes I think that everybody is, but it's around the isolation, the exacerbation in mental health specifically as well. For our students with ADHD and learning disabilities, that challenge of having online classes and not being in person, because that's how they learn best and that's how they have managed, previously. There's more of that structure, right?
Mhm.
Because you have all of the modes of classes coming into play. And that goes also with our students on the autism spectrum. And I think then from a chronic medical condition and thinking about our students, connected students, it's just the uncertainty and the feelings about, what does this mean if I'm immunocompromised? How can I, make sure that I'm being safe and then engage in my coursework? I'm experiencing this impact academically. Is there something that can, address this impact, this disability related impact? So those are some of the themes, but I think mental health is across the board is the continuing challenge, right? And not only for students, but faculty and staff as well. This is a community concern.
No, absolutely, and I'm so proud of the work that Carolina has done to extend itself into the virtual space and to make sure that we have enough staff to not, like you said, not only meet the needs of the students but of faculty and staff as well.
Yeah.
And so and so COVID has played a role in our current work, but the world is starting to open back up.
Right.
Slowly but surely, we start to see more and more students come back. We see more people out, both in our community and on campus. And so with that, how are we going to prepare for the fall so that our campus is more accessible and that we can ensure that those that you work with have an easy time coming back to campus?
Yeah. I've been trying to kind of, along with my staff who are amazing, brainstorm what we might see, right, coming from that. And based on the various scenarios, I have raised the concern that as we're coming back into the fall and a return to near normal, what that looks like, um, that's going to be challenging for people, I think, for the entire community in terms of what flexibility is there.
Yeah.
How am I feeling being out on campus with people and in class with people when I haven't been around people potentially for an entire academic year? So we're trying to work with some of our campus partners that I've mentioned previously. There's a group of us to talk more about, how are we communicating proactively to students about availability? How are we making sure to raise concerns to leadership for consideration through the roadmap implementation team?
Mhm.
And the other thing that I've been fortunate enough to do is have met with a number of my accessibility directors colleagues weekly since March of 2020. And so that's also a really great way for us to talk about trends that we're seeing, how to best support students, what do our processes look like, how have conversations gone at their institutions. So I feel good about just us being prepared to maybe, but I am also concerned about potential increase in volume of students
Yeah.
connecting because we are our trajectory has always been up in terms of students connecting with our office. And I wish I had that data right now, but I don't. But we're in the process of pulling it from spring 2020 until now. And I definitely anticipate that we could probably see continue to see an increased number of students connecting with our office.
No, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing that more students are seeking out services. But one thing that also creates is a lot more work. And one thing that we have learned over the pandemic is what is essential and where our gaps are.
Right.
And so speaking of gaps, what are some of the things that if you had to tell a donor or a friend of the university that you needed, what would those one or two things be?
Okay. Well, I think it would be an additional full-time staff member. I think as we look at, not just the volume of students connecting with our office, but what extra support we're able to provide. I mean, part of the reason we were able to do the more direct outreach is because we have an undergraduate intern working with our office this semester for the first time, and that's part of her role right now, and that's been wonderful. And that was the same in the spring when we had somebody kind of connected. So an additional staff person would be wonderful. And I think it's going to start to get to a critical level at a particular
Yeah,
point in time. I
excellent.
think the other one would be maybe some more, in addition to what I mentioned with the autism program and trying to start that, but thinking more broadly about to assist with more of some more programmatic things like developing trainings that can be used. That is not the sole responsibility of our office, and that there are a number of partners on campus who are working on accessibility, like equal opportunity and compliance with faculty and staff. So we're trying to think broadly of how are we helping to educate the campus community more broadly on disability. And so anyway, something around assistance around creating more formal trainings that are not something, maybe they're purchased off the shelf, but maybe it's we are creating something that is really tailored to the Carolina community and also to the trends and some of the things that, EOC and ARS and some of our other campus partners are seeing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's again, and if COVID-19 and the pandemic hasn't shown anything, it's just shown where we need to do better in a lot of ways. And if training is one of those, then training is one of those because we have to be an accessible and accommodating campus when we're back in the fall, when we anticipate that we'll be back all together as normal.
Right.
I'm thankful that you brought that up. As well as one of the things that you've also brought up is the ability, the capacity issue of staff.
Right.
And we can all understand that.
Yeah.
So no, that's really good. I want two more things for you. One is I know that you were working. People were needed. If I'm calling this correctly, assistive technology,
Right.
more assistive technology on campus. And have you seen? Do you anticipate a rise in that as students come back? Have you received any requests during the pandemic for assistive technology?
We have, based on various kind of individual needs, but I think what's wonderful, one of the silver linings about COVID is that it really has forwarded digital accessibility initiatives, and the digital accessibility office and staff are amazing in helping the campus community, including faculty, think about their classes from a universal design perspective. And I know that the continuity of teaching group has been doing a lot of work around that from the Keep Teaching site. And so I think through those initiatives, I've felt like instructional material and course design is as accessible as I've ever seen it. And from a programmatic access for various departments, orientation is a great example of that. Their entire program is accessible online. And so I think that I'm not, because of that, I don't know that we would see the level of requests that we normally do, but I think that from a large perspective, the institution looking at accessibility, there are some things that are on the radar, I think, that could be larger things moving forward and implementation in the fall that benefit the entire campus community.
No. Yeah, that makes sense. That more virtual, more access. So it is, again, like you said, silver lining. Well, Tiffany, we always want to end with telling people how to find you.
Yes.
In case they're an advocate, a friend, someone who wants to learn more, a parent, to how to get to you and your staff.
Yes. So we're located in the Student and Academic Services North Building at the corner of Ridge Road and Manning Drive. But I would say that email is the best way right now, especially because they're getting ready to start construction in the plaza. And so we want to make sure that we are able to tell visitors the best accessible route to get here, depending on what phase of construction that we're in. So it's just ars@unc.edu. We also have our student leaders, if there are general questions, operating our Zoom room, which our hours are on the website, ars.unc.edu, so people can pop in and ask questions about that. And we're available via phone. And we're not currently doing walk-in appointments, just given COVID considerations. However, we'd be happy to consider requests to meet in person. And especially now that the weather is nice, I actually just met with a family yesterday outside, which was really wonderful. So
Good, fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate all the work that you do and all the information that you'll be provided, and hopefully, a lot of people will watch this and reach out to you. Just so that you know, it goes out on our Student Affairs Development newsletter. We put it on social media platforms with the division, and so we want to make sure that we educate and inform as many people that love our work as possible. So it's
Great.
been great to spend time with you. And this has been another amazing episode of Inside Student Affairs, talking to the leaders and the people who support the work of student affairs at UNC Chapel Hill. Have a great day.